The old apartment building on Krasnaya Street has been standing for over 100 years, and everyone in the neighborhood knows there's something wrong with its elevator. The brass panel inside shows buttons from 1 to 12, but there's another button hidden beneath a loose metal plate. This button is labeled -13, and pressing it takes you somewhere that doesn't appear on any city map. Local residents whisper about this elevator in hushed tones, warning newcomers never to enter it alone after midnight. The building's superintendent claims the button was disconnected decades ago, but the faint glow behind the plastic cover tells a different story. A young urban explorer named Victor discovered the truth about this elevator 3 years ago when he was documenting abandoned Soviet infrastructure throughout the city. He had heard rumors about underground tunnels connecting government buildings, hospitals, and military installations. What he found beneath the ordinary apartment complex exceeded his wildest expectations and changed his understanding of the city forever. The descent began when he pried off the metal cover and pressed the forbidden button marked with that ominous number. The elevator groaned and shuddered as it began moving downward, passing the basement level and continuing into darkness. Victor counted the seconds as the ancient machinery carried him deeper underground, far below the subway tunnels and sewer systems. After nearly 2 minutes of descent, the elevator stopped with a heavy metallic clang that echoed through unseen corridors. The doors opened to reveal a world that modern city dwellers have completely forgotten exists beneath their feet. Stretching before him was a vast network of stone passages illuminated by emergency lights that had somehow remained functional for decades. The walls were lined with cables and pipes, suggesting this place once served as a critical infrastructure hub during the Cold War. Old Soviet posters hung on the walls, their colors faded, but their messages still legible after all these years. This was clearly a bunker system designed to shelter important officials during a nuclear attack. Victor began documenting everything with his camera, walking through corridors that branched off in multiple directions like an underground labyrinth. Some passages were blocked by collapsed rubble, while others opened into large chambers filled with rusted equipment and abandoned supplies. He found storage rooms stacked with boxes of gas masks, medical supplies, and canned food that had expired in the 1980s. The air was surprisingly fresh, indicating that ventilation systems were still operating somewhere in this forgotten complex. The deeper Victor explored, the stranger the discoveries became. He stumbled upon a room filled with filing cabinets containing documents stamped with classification markings he had never seen before. Another chamber held rows of metal beds covered with dust, clearly intended to house hundreds of people during an extended underground stay. A massive steel door blocked access to what appeared to be a command center, its electronic lock still blinking with a faint red light. What truly disturbed Victor was the evidence that someone had been down here recently. Fresh footprints marked the dusty floor in several corridors, and he found empty water bottles with expiration dates from the current year. Cigarette butts were scattered near a makeshift seating area, and the ashes were not yet fully cold. Someone was using these forgotten catacombs as their personal hideout, and Victor suddenly felt like an intruder in a very dangerous place. The sound of voices echoing through distant tunnels sent Victor racing back toward the elevator. He pressed the call button repeatedly, watching the darkness behind him for any sign of movement. The elevator took an agonizing amount of time to arrive, and he swore he could hear footsteps growing closer with each passing second. When the doors finally opened, He threw himself inside and jabbed the button for the ground floor. Victor never returned to explore those catacombs again, but his footage spread across the internet and attracted the attention of other urban explorers worldwide. Some dismissed his video as an elaborate hoax, while others began searching for similar hidden elevator buttons in old buildings throughout the city. Several claimed to have found their own entrances to the underground network, describing passages that matched Victor's footage exactly. The authorities responded to the viral video by sealing several known entrances to the city's underground infrastructure. Maintenance workers welded shut access panels and installed new security systems in older buildings. But those who know the city's secrets understand that you cannot seal a network this vast, built over decades by paranoid Soviet planners who wanted multiple escape routes. Local historians have traced the origins of these catacombs to the early 1950s, when Stalin ordered the construction of underground facilities in major cities across the Soviet Union. The official purpose was civil defense, but declassified documents suggest a darker intention involving the potential relocation of the entire government apparatus. Thousands of workers labored in secret to build these tunnels, and many were reportedly never seen again after completing their assignments. The elevator in the building on Krasnaya Street is just one of dozens of access points scattered throughout the city. Some are hidden in government buildings with armed guards and security checkpoints, while others exist in ordinary residential blocks where no one thinks to look. The -13 button has become a symbol among urban explorers, representing the hidden layer of reality that exists just beneath the surface of everyday life. Strange things happen to people who spend too much time in the catacombs beneath the city. Several explorers have reported experiencing disorientation and memory gaps after extended underground sessions. Others describe hearing whispered conversations in empty corridors or catching glimpses of figures that disappear around corners. The most disturbing accounts involve explorers who claim to have found passages leading to chambers that should not physically exist beneath the city. One popular theory suggests that the underground network extends far beyond the city limits, connecting to similar bunker systems in neighboring regions. If this theory is correct, it would be possible to walk underground from one end of the country to another, never seeing daylight for months at a time. Some believe this network was designed as an evacuation route for the Soviet elite, allowing them to escape westward in the event of a successful invasion. The elevator itself has become an object of obsession for certain individuals who believe it holds mystical properties. They point to the number 13 as evidence of occult significance, claiming the Soviet engineers deliberately chose this number to mark entrances to their most secret facilities. These believers gather in online forums to share theories about what lies in the deepest levels of the underground network, levels that no explorer has yet managed to reach. Rational skeptics dismiss these theories as the products of overactive fantasies, but even they cannot explain certain documented phenomena. Security cameras in the building on Krasnaya Street have captured footage of the elevator moving on its own at exactly 3 in the morning. The doors open and close as if receiving invisible passengers, and the car descends to levels that should not exist according to the building's official plans. Building management has attempted to decommission the elevator multiple times, but each attempt has been mysteriously abandoned. Workers report feeling overwhelming dread when approaching the control systems, and equipment malfunctions with suspicious frequency during repair attempts. One maintenance company simply refused to complete the job, returning their advance payment without explanation. The current residents of the building have learned to coexist with their unusual elevator, following unwritten rules passed down through generations of tenants. Never use the elevator alone after dark. Never look directly at the button panel for too long, and never acknowledge anything unusual you might see reflected in the mirrored walls. These rules sound superstitious, but those who ignore them often find themselves experiencing things they struggle to explain. A documentary filmmaker spent 3 months investigating the elevator and its connection to the underground catacombs. Her footage revealed details that Victor's original video had missed, including strange markings on the tunnel walls that appeared to be some kind of navigation system. She discovered that the catacombs contained multiple levels, each accessed by different hidden mechanisms throughout the city. Her film was never released, and she has refused all interviews since completing her research. Underground exploration has become a subculture in this city, with dedicated groups mapping the tunnels and sharing information through encrypted channels. They speak in code about their discoveries, aware that certain revelations could attract unwanted attention from authorities or worse. New members must prove their trustworthiness before receiving invitations to explore the most sensitive areas of the network. The -13 button remains the most famous entrance point, drawing curious visitors from around the world who want to experience the descent for themselves. Building security has been increased in response to this unwanted attention, but determined explorers still find ways to gain access. They wait for opportunities when guards are distracted or maintenance doors are left unlocked, driven by an irresistible need to see what lies below. Scientists who have analyzed air samples from the catacombs report unusual readings that defy easy explanation. The oxygen levels are higher than expected at such depths, suggesting an unknown source of fresh air. Trace elements in the atmosphere indicate the presence of materials not native to the local geology, as if the tunnels were built using resources brought from elsewhere. The most recent expedition into the catacombs occurred just 6 months ago, when a team of 5 experienced explorers descended through the Krasnaya Street elevator. They carried advanced mapping equipment and planned to document previously unexplored sections of the network. Only 4 returned to the surface, and they refused to discuss what happened to their missing companion. Their footage remains sealed, pending an investigation that shows no signs of reaching any conclusions. Urban legends continue to multiply around the elevator and its underground destination, each more fantastic than the last. Some claim the tunnels connect to ancient burial chambers predating the city itself, where treasures and artifacts from forgotten civilizations await discovery. Others whisper about government experiments conducted in the deepest bunkers, experiments involving technologies that the public would never accept. The elevator shaft itself appears ordinary from the outside, distinguished only by its unusual depth and the persistent humming that emanates from somewhere below. Engineers who have examined the mechanism cannot explain how it continues to function after so many decades without maintenance. The cables show no signs of wear, and the motor operates with impossible smoothness for equipment of its age. Residents report that animals avoid the building, particularly the lobby area near the elevator. Stray cats that roam every other building in the neighborhood refuse to cross its threshold. Birds never nest on its ledges, and even insects seem to give the structure a wide berth. Whether this represents animal instinct sensing danger or mere coincidence remains a matter of debate among those who study the phenomenon. The city planning department has no records explaining the elevator's unusual configuration or the existence of the -13 button. Official blueprints show a standard 12-floor building with a conventional basement, nothing more. Someone apparently went to great lengths to erase all documentation of the underground levels, leaving only rumors and first-hand accounts as evidence of their existence. A former Soviet official, speaking anonymously shortly before his death, claimed the catacombs were part of a much larger project codenamed Operation Deep Foundation. This project allegedly connected major cities throughout the Soviet bloc, creating an underground highway for the rapid movement of personnel and materials. The official refused to elaborate on what purposes this highway served, saying only that some secrets should remain buried. The elevator's age has been verified through multiple dating techniques, confirming construction during the late 1940s or early 50s. This timing coincides with the most paranoid period of Soviet history, when fears of nuclear war and foreign invasion drove massive investments in underground infrastructure. The technology used in its construction, however, appears more advanced than what was officially available during that era. Temperature readings inside the elevator shaft show unusual fluctuations that follow no predictable pattern. The car can feel icy cold during summer months and uncomfortably warm during winter, as if the underground network generates its own climate independent of surface conditions. These fluctuations intensify during the descent to level -13, reaching their peak just as the doors prepare to open. The sounds that echo up through the elevator shaft have been recorded and analyzed by audio specialists, seeking rational explanations. Most can be attributed to normal mechanical operations or acoustic illusions created by the tunnel geometry. But certain recordings contain elements that resist explanation, patterns that almost resemble human speech in an unknown language. Local religious leaders have been called to bless the building on multiple occasions, each time at the request of terrified residents who experienced something they could not rationalize. These ceremonies seem to provide temporary relief, but the strange occurrences always resume within weeks or months. One priest who performed the blessing reportedly refused to discuss what he sensed inside the elevator, except to say that not all underground places belong to the same realm. The internet has preserved dozens of first-hand accounts from people who have ridden the elevator to -13 and returned to tell their stories. Common themes include overwhelming feelings of being watched, the sensation of passing through invisible barriers during the descent, and difficulty remembering specific details after returning to the surface. Many describe an inexplicable reluctance to ever speak about their experiences, as if their memories are actively resisting examination. Professional debunkers have visited the site hoping to expose the elevator mystery as an elaborate hoax or misunderstanding. Most leave without publishing their findings, and those who do publish generally confine themselves to explaining away peripheral details while avoiding the central questions. No debunker has yet provided a comprehensive explanation for all documented phenomena associated with the elevator and its underground destination. The building's owner has received numerous purchase offers from mysterious buyers with no traceable identity or obvious motivation. All offers have been rejected, leading to speculation about the owner's connection to whatever organization originally constructed the underground facility. Property records show the building has changed hands only once since its construction, through a transaction that predates modern record-keeping requirements. Those who have explored the catacombs describe a geography that seems to shift between visits, with familiar corridors leading to unfamiliar destinations and new passages appearing where none existed before. This could be explained by the sheer size of the network and the limitations of human memory, but some explorers insist the changes are too dramatic to attribute to simple confusion. Emergency services have been called to the building on Krasnaya Street numerous times over the decades, usually in response to reports of people trapped in the elevator. In most cases, responders find the car empty when they pry open the doors, with no explanation for the distress calls. On a few occasions, individuals have been found inside in states of severe distress, unable or unwilling to explain what happened during their descent. The legend of the -13 elevator has inspired novels, films, and video games that reimagine the underground network as everything from an alien installation to a portal between dimensions. These fictional interpretations have obscured the real story, making it difficult for researchers to separate fact from fantasy when investigating the phenomenon. The truth, whatever it may be, remains buried beneath layers of speculation and sensationalism. People continue to move into the building on Krasnaya Street, attracted by reasonable rents and a convenient location near public transportation. New residents quickly learn about the elevator's reputation from their neighbors and must decide for themselves whether to heed the warnings. Most avoid using the elevator entirely, preferring to climb the stairs rather than risk an unexpected descent to places unknown. The button marked -13 continues to glow faintly behind its loose metal cover, waiting for the next curious soul brave or foolish enough to press it. Whatever waits in the catacombs below the city has existed there for decades, perhaps centuries, patient and unchanging while the world above transforms beyond recognition. The elevator stands ready to make its descent at any moment, a doorway to secrets that were never meant to be discovered. The first documented disappearance connected to the elevator occurred in 1967, when a building maintenance worker named Sergei Volkov entered the car during a routine inspection and never emerged. His colleagues heard the elevator descend, but assumed he was checking the basement mechanical room. When hours passed without any sign of him, they called the authorities. Police searched the entire building, including every level accessible by the elevator, finding nothing but an abandoned flashlight lying on the floor of a corridor that appeared on no official blueprint. Volkov's wife received a letter 3 weeks after his disappearance, delivered without a postmark or return address. The handwriting matched her husband's, but the message made no sense. He wrote about beautiful underground gardens and cities carved from living stone, places where time moved differently and the surface world seemed like a fading dream. He asked her not to search for him, saying he had found something worth staying for. She kept that letter until her death, showing it to researchers who could never determine whether it was genuine or an elaborate, cruel hoax. Over the following decades, at least 12 more people vanished after entering the elevator on Krasnaya Street. Not all of them pressed the -13 button intentionally. Some were simply riding between floors when the elevator malfunctioned, bypassing their selected destination and plunging into the depths. Survivors of these accidental descents describe being deposited in unfamiliar corridors with no clear path back to the elevator. Most managed to find their way to the surface through other exits scattered throughout the city, emerging in basements and maintenance tunnels far from where they started. The catacombs appear to have their own ecosystem, supporting life forms that have adapted to perpetual darkness over countless generations. Explorers report encountering pale insects with overdeveloped antennae, blind fish swimming in underground streams, and fungi that emit a faint bioluminescence. These organisms have never been formally classified because no one has successfully brought specimens to the surface for scientific study. Samples collected underground seem to disintegrate when exposed to natural light, leaving researchers with nothing but photographs and descriptions. Water flows through the deepest levels of the catacomb system, forming rivers that connect to the city's natural aquifer. The water is remarkably pure, filtered through layers of rock and soil until it contains almost no impurities or minerals. Those who have tasted it describe an unusual sweetness and a sensation of increased alertness that lasts for hours after drinking. Some believe the underground water possesses healing properties, though no medical evidence supports these claims. The walls of certain chambers are covered with murals depicting scenes that predate Soviet construction by centuries, if not millennia. These paintings show figures descending into the earth through spiral staircases, encountering beings that resemble no known life form. Art historians who have examined photographs of the murals cannot agree on their age or cultural origin, identifying influences from multiple civilizations that should never have had contact with each other. One particularly controversial theory suggests the catacombs were not built by human hands at all. Proponents point to the precision of certain stone carvings, the impossible geometry of some passages, and the presence of materials not found anywhere on the Earth's surface. They believe the Soviet engineers who officially constructed the bunker system merely expanded and adapted an existing structure, one that had been waiting underground since before recorded history began. The electromagnetic anomalies detected throughout the underground network have attracted the attention of physicists seeking to understand their source. Compasses spin wildly in certain areas, electronic devices malfunction or display impossible readings, and radio communications become unreliable below a certain depth. These effects intensify near what explorers call the deep chambers, large spaces located at the lowest accessible levels of the catacomb system. Photographs taken in the catacombs frequently contain anomalies that were not visible to the naked eye during exposure. Shapes appear in backgrounds that witnesses swear were empty. Lights flicker in sealed corridors where no power source exists, and shadows fall at angles inconsistent with the available illumination. Digital cameras produce more anomalies than film cameras, leading some to speculate that electronic sensors pick up frequencies invisible to human perception. The architectural style of the underground chambers varies dramatically from section to section, suggesting construction occurred over an extended period by multiple different groups. Soviet-era concrete bunkers connect to brick-lined tunnels that appear Victorian in design, which in turn open into chambers carved directly from bedrock using techniques that remain unidentified. This layering effect implies the catacombs have been continuously expanded and modified for centuries, each generation adding to the work of their predecessors. Sound behaves strangely in the deepest passages, traveling distances that should be impossible given the tunnel geometry. Whispers can be heard from hundreds of meters away, while shouts disappear into silence after traveling only a few steps. Explorers have conducted experiments with audio equipment, recording sounds that originated from sources they could not locate. Some of these recordings contain what appears to be music, complex melodies played on instruments that produce tones outside the normal range of human hearing. The temperature gradient as one descends through the catacomb levels defies geological expectations. Instead of increasing with depth as physics would predict, temperatures actually drop as explorers move deeper underground. The coldest areas recorded approach freezing, far below what should be possible at these depths given the geothermal gradient of the region. This anomaly has no satisfactory scientific explanation and remains one of the most documented but least understood aspects of the underground environment. Several explorers have reported encountering other humans in the catacombs, individuals who did not enter through any known access point and who refused to explain their presence. These encounters are always brief, with the mysterious figures disappearing around corners or into shadows before meaningful communication can occur. Descriptions vary widely, with some witnesses reporting people dressed in modern clothing, while others describe figures wearing uniforms or garments from previous decades. The most disturbing accounts involve explorers who claim to have met versions of themselves in the underground passages. These doppelgangers appeared slightly different, older or younger, or bearing scars that the original did not possess. Communication was impossible because the doubles seemed unaware of being observed, going about activities that made no sense in the context of the catacomb environment. Psychologists attribute these reports to the disorienting effects of prolonged underground exploration, but witnesses insist their experiences were genuine. A network of informants maintained surveillance over the building on Krasnaya Street, documenting everyone who enters and exits the elevator. This group operates independently of any official organization, motivated by a desire to understand what is happening beneath the city and to prevent further disappearances. They have compiled extensive files on regular visitors, occasional explorers, and suspicious individuals who seem to know more about the underground network than they should. The elevator car itself has been examined by engineers who found components that should not exist in equipment of its vintage. Certain mechanisms appear to utilize principles that were not understood when the elevator was supposedly manufactured, raising questions about either its true age or the involvement of extraordinarily advanced engineers in its construction. These findings have never been published in academic journals because no credible institution will stake its reputation on such implausible claims. Dreams reported by people who live or work near the elevator share remarkable similarities despite the dreamers having no contact with each other. They describe descending endless staircases, wandering through underground cities, and encountering silent figures who communicate through gestures rather than speech. Sleep researchers have documented these dream patterns without being able to explain why proximity to the building would affect subconscious imagery. The electricity consumption of the elevator system exceeds what should be required for its official function by a significant margin. Building managers have traced the excess draw to equipment located somewhere below the basement level, equipment that does not appear on any maintenance schedule or inventory list. Attempts to access this equipment have been frustrated by locked doors and passages that seem to change location between visits. Local wildlife has demonstrated unusual behavior patterns in the vicinity of the building for as long as records have been kept. Dogs bark at empty spaces, cats stare at walls for hours, and birds alter their migration patterns to avoid flying directly over the structure. Behavioral scientists have proposed various explanations ranging from subsonic vibrations to electromagnetic interference, but none fully account for the consistency and intensity of these animal reactions. The structural integrity of the building has been tested repeatedly, always returning results that should be impossible given its age and the documented lack of major renovations. Load-bearing walls show no signs of stress or fatigue. Foundations remain perfectly level despite decades of soil shifting, and materials retain their original strength, as if time has somehow been suspended within the structure itself. Underground mapping projects using ground-penetrating radar have produced inconsistent results when scanning the area beneath the building. Some scans reveal extensive void spaces that should correspond to the catacomb system, while others show solid rock where passages have been physically documented to exist. Engineers speculate that the unusual mineral composition of the underground environment interferes with radar propagation, but this explanation does not account for why results vary between scans conducted under identical conditions. The families of those who have disappeared into the catacombs have formed an informal support network, sharing information and pooling resources to investigate the fates of their loved ones. Some have devoted their lives to understanding the underground system, becoming experts on its history and geography despite lacking any academic credentials. These amateur researchers have uncovered connections that professional investigators missed, linking the elevator on Krasnaya Street to similar phenomena in cities across the former Soviet bloc. Documents leaked from intelligence archives suggest the underground network was monitored by multiple agencies during the Cold War, each unaware of the other's interest. American satellites detected unusual thermal signatures emanating from the ground above the catacombs, while Soviet counterintelligence investigated reports of unauthorized access to classified bunker systems. Neither side ever determined what was actually happening beneath the surface, and both eventually classified their findings at the highest levels of secrecy. The number 13 appears with suspicious frequency throughout the catacomb system, carved into walls, stamped on equipment, and embedded in the geometric patterns that decorate certain chambers. Numerologists have analyzed these occurrences without reaching consensus on their meaning, though most agree the repetition cannot be coincidental. Some see evidence of deliberate ritual significance, while others interpret the number as a simple classification system used by the original builders. Acoustic mapping of the underground network has revealed the existence of spaces too large to have been constructed using known techniques. These void spaces appear to be natural caverns that were incorporated into the artificial tunnel system, their original entrances sealed and their presence concealed from surface observers. What purpose these hidden caverns serve remains unknown, as no explorer has found a way to access them despite years of searching. The air quality in the deepest sections of the catacombs contains trace elements that should not exist so far underground. Atmospheric analysis has detected gases associated with volcanic activity, despite the region having no geological history of volcanism. Some researchers theorize that the catacomb system connects to fissures reaching deep into the Earth's crust, providing pathways for gases from the planetary interior to reach shallow depths. Survivors of extended underground expeditions report changes in their perception that persist long after returning to the surface. Colors seem more vivid, sounds more distinct, and the passage of time feels subjective rather than fixed. These altered states usually fade within weeks, but some individuals claim to have been permanently changed by their experiences in the catacombs. Medical examinations reveal no physical abnormalities that could explain these perceptual shifts. The elevator button, marked -13, has been photographed thousands of times, yet images consistently fail to capture its appearance accurately. The button appears blurred or distorted in photographs regardless of camera quality or lighting conditions, as if something about its physical presence resists optical recording. This effect has been reproduced under controlled conditions by skeptics who arrived expecting to debunk the claims. Construction crews working on nearby buildings occasionally break through into catacomb passages that do not appear on underground surveys. These accidental discoveries are quickly sealed by authorities who arrive with unusual speed whenever such incidents are reported. Workers involved in these discoveries are typically transferred to other projects and discouraged from discussing what they saw during their brief glimpses into the underground world. The original architects who designed the building on Krasnaya Street left no records explaining the elevator's unusual capabilities. Their personal papers, confiscated after their deaths during Stalin's purges, have never been recovered despite extensive searches of intelligence archives. Family members recall the architects speaking in coded language about their work, hinting at projects far more significant than constructing residential housing. Seasonal variations in catacomb activity have been documented by long-term observers who monitor the elevator's behavior throughout the year. Activity increases during the winter solstice and decreases during summer months, following a pattern that suggests connection to astronomical rather than human calendars. This cycle has remained consistent for as long as records have been kept, unaffected by changes in surface-level human activity. The deepest level any explorer has reached and returned from is estimated at approximately 200 meters below street level, far deeper than any official bunker system was designed to extend. What lies below this depth remains entirely unknown, though instruments lowered on cables have detected open spaces continuing for at least another 100 meters before signal loss prevented further measurement. Communication devices brought into the catacombs occasionally receive transmissions from sources that cannot be identified or located. These transmissions consist of static punctuated by what sounds like human speech in multiple languages, some recognizable and others entirely unfamiliar. Analysis of recorded transmissions has failed to match them to any known broadcast source or communication protocol. The elevator on Krasnaya Street continues to operate, carrying residents between floors during daylight hours and descending to unknown depths when no one is watching. Building management has given up trying to restrict access, accepting that some mysteries cannot be solved through administrative measures. They simply post warnings and hope that curiosity does not claim any more victims. Every year, a handful of new explorers descend into the catacombs, drawn by stories they read online or heard from friends who swear every word is true. Most return safely, their expectations either confirmed or disappointed, depending on how deep they were willing to go. A few do not return at all, adding their names to the growing list of those who vanished after pressing the button that leads to nowhere and everywhere at once. The truth about what lies beneath the city may never be fully understood, hidden behind layers of secrecy, misdirection, and genuine mystery that resists investigation. But the elevator continues to wait, its doors opening and closing on schedule, ready to transport anyone brave enough to seek answers that might be better left undiscovered. The button glows faintly in the darkness, an invitation that has remained open for decades, patient as the stone tunnels that spiral endlessly into the depths below. The last known expedition into the catacombs took place on a freezing November night, when a group of 7 researchers decided to solve the mystery once and for all. They carried the most advanced equipment available, including thermal imaging cameras, ground-penetrating radar units, and communication devices capable of maintaining signal through solid rock. Their plan was to descend deeper than anyone had gone before, to reach the chambers that instruments detected, but no human eyes had ever seen. The team entered the elevator at precisely midnight, having bribed the night security guard to look the other way for a few hours. Each member wore a body camera that transmitted footage to a surface monitoring station where colleagues watched their progress in real time. The descent began normally, the elevator car groaning as it carried its passengers past the basement and into the darkness below. Footage from the body cameras showed the doors opening onto a corridor that matched previous descriptions of the catacomb entrance. The team moved efficiently, marking their path with reflective tape and maintaining constant communication with the surface. For the first hour, everything proceeded according to plan. They documented chambers filled with Soviet-era equipment, photographed murals that had never been recorded before, and collected samples of the unusual fungi growing on the tunnel walls. The problems began when they reached a junction that did not appear on any map compiled from previous expeditions. 3 passages branched off in directions that should have led into solid rock, according to geological surveys. The team leader made the decision to explore the central passage, reasoning that it headed toward the large void space detected by instruments during earlier scans. Communication with the surface became intermittent as the team descended a spiral staircase carved directly into the bedrock. Their cameras captured images of walls covered with symbols that resembled known writing system, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Temperature readings dropped steadily until the team could see their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. At approximately 230 meters below street level, the team entered a chamber so vast that their flashlights could not reach the far walls. The ceiling disappeared into darkness overhead, and the floor was covered with a fine dust that showed no footprints from previous visitors. In the center of the chamber stood a structure that the team struggled to describe, a tower or monument constructed from materials that reflected light in impossible ways. Surface monitors watched as the team approached the structure, their cameras transmitting images that would later be analyzed by experts around the world. The structure appeared to be ancient beyond estimation, its surfaces worn smooth by ages of exposure to the underground atmosphere. Symbols covered every visible surface, the same geometric patterns that decorated the tunnel walls, but arranged in sequences that suggested intentional meaning. One team member reached out to touch the structure's surface, and at that precise moment, all 7 body cameras simultaneously failed. The surface monitoring station lost all signal, and frantic attempts to re-establish communication produced only static. Colleagues waited through the night, hoping the team would emerge from the elevator as dawn approached. They never did. Search parties descended into the catacombs over the following weeks, following the reflective tape the team had left to mark their path. The tape led to the junction with 3 passages, then simply stopped. No trace of the central passage remained, only solid rock where an opening had clearly existed hours before. The spiral staircase, the vast chamber, the mysterious structure, all had vanished as if they had never existed. The only evidence that the team had ever descended into the catacombs was their equipment, found neatly arranged in the corridor just beyond the elevator doors. Body cameras, radar units, sample containers, everything they had carried was placed in perfect order, waiting to be discovered. The footage stored on the cameras ended at the moment of signal loss, preserving images of the vast chamber and its central structure, but revealing nothing about what happened afterward. Authorities sealed the elevator permanently following this incident, welding the doors shut and filling the shaft with concrete to prevent future access. Residents of the building were relocated, and the structure was condemned pending demolition. But the demolition never occurred. Contractors who arrived to begin the work reported equipment failures, mysterious accidents, and an overwhelming sense of dread that made it impossible to continue. The building still stands today, empty and abandoned, its sealed elevator shaft hiding secrets that may never be revealed. Those who monitor catacomb activity from other access points report that something changed after the elevator was sealed. The underground network seems more active now, with sounds echoing through tunnels that were previously silent and lights flickering in passages where no power source exists. Some believe the sealing of the elevator disturbed whatever presence inhabits the deepest chambers, awakening something that had been dormant for centuries. The families of the 7 researchers continue to seek answers, hiring private investigators and consulting experts who specialize in unusual phenomena. They have received no official explanation for what happened, only vague assurances that the investigation remains ongoing. Personal effects belonging to the team members have never been recovered, and the bodies, if bodies exist, remain somewhere in the depths below the city. Online communities dedicated to the catacomb mystery have grown exponentially since the disappearance, attracting members from every corner of the world. They share theories, analyze footage, and plan expeditions through access points that authorities have not yet discovered. Some believe the 7 researchers are still alive, trapped in a dimension or time period that exists parallel to our own. Others accept the grimmer possibility that they encountered something in that vast chamber that no human was meant to survive. The symbols captured in the final footage have been studied by linguists, mathematicians, and cryptographers without success. They appear to follow consistent rules that suggest a genuine language or mathematical system, but the key to decoding them remains elusive. Some researchers believe the symbols are instructions or warnings, messages left by the structure's builders for whoever might eventually discover their creation. A former intelligence officer who worked on classified projects during the Cold War provided anonymous testimony claiming the underground structure predates human civilization by millions of years. According to his account, Soviet scientists discovered the chamber in the 1950s and attempted to study its contents before being driven away by phenomena they could not explain. The entire catacomb bunker system was constructed as a cover story, an excuse to maintain access to the ancient site while concealing its true nature from the public. Whether this testimony is genuine or simply another layer of mythology surrounding the catacombs cannot be determined. The officer died shortly after providing his statement, and the documents he claimed would verify his story have never surfaced. His account joins countless others in the archive of unverifiable claims that have accumulated around the elevator on Krasnaya Street. The building continues to exert a strange influence over the surrounding neighborhood, despite being empty and sealed for years. Property values in adjacent blocks have declined as residents report sleep disturbances, unexplained sounds, and a persistent feeling of being watched. Some have moved away entirely, unwilling to live in proximity to whatever force emanates from the condemned structure. Children who grow up in the neighborhood tell stories about the building, daring each other to approach its boarded windows and touch its crumbling walls. They speak of a figure that sometimes appears in upper floor windows, watching the street below with eyes that reflect light like mirrors. Adults dismiss these stories as imagination, but security cameras have occasionally captured images that resist easy explanation. The city has proposed various plans for the site over the years, from converting it into a memorial to demolishing it for new construction. Every plan has been abandoned due to bureaucratic obstacles, funding shortfalls, or incidents that made continuation impossible. The building seems to resist change, maintaining its presence on Krasnaya Street through forces that may not be entirely natural. Deep beneath the abandoned structure, in chambers that no longer connect to the surface through any known passage, the vast space with its central monument continues to exist. The dust on the floor now shows footprints that were not there before, trails leading from the structure to the walls and back again. Something moves in the darkness, something that waited for millennia before the first explorers descended, something that will continue waiting long after the last human has forgotten the elevator ever existed. The button marked -13 still glows behind its welded cover, its faint light visible through gaps in the concrete that was supposed to seal the shaft forever. Workers who poured that concrete reported feeling vibrations from below, rhythmic pulses that matched no mechanical source. They heard sounds that might have been voices, calling from depths that should have been silent, inviting them to descend and discover what lies at the bottom of the endless spiral. No one has accepted that invitation since the shaft was sealed, but the invitation remains open. Somewhere in the city, other access points wait to be discovered, other elevators with buttons that lead to places no map has ever shown. The underground network extends in directions that compass needles cannot indicate, toward destinations that exist outside the boundaries of ordinary space and time. Those who know the truth understand that sealing one entrance means nothing when the catacombs themselves are alive, growing and changing and reaching toward the surface through cracks in reality that human senses cannot perceive. The elevator on Krasnaya Street was merely one doorway among many, one thread in a web that spans the entire city and perhaps the entire world. The story of the -13 button has become a legend passed from generation to generation, evolving with each retelling until the original facts are buried beneath layers of embellishment and speculation. But beneath the legend, beneath the theories and the hoaxes and the honest mistakes, something true remains. Something is down there, something that has always been down there. Something that will still be there when the buildings above have crumbled to dust and new civilizations have risen to take the place of those that forgot the warnings carved in stone. And sometimes, late at night when the city falls silent and the stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, a sound rises from deep beneath the earth. It might be the settling of rock, the movement of underground water, the natural processes that shape the world below the surface. Or it might be something else entirely, something that has no name in any human language, something that waits with infinite patience for the next curious soul to press the button and begin the descent. The elevator to nowhere remains, even when its physical form has been destroyed. The path it opens still exists, carved not through stone, but through the fabric of reality itself. And for those who know where to look, who understand the signs and symbols that mark the hidden entrances, the journey into the catacombs beneath the city can begin at any moment. All it takes is the courage to step inside, press the button, and discover what waits at the bottom of the endless dark.